This whiskey right here marks 10 years of Teeling, a decade of Dublin distilling. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and this right here is the Teeling Irish whiskey 10-year-old birthday batch. So let me get it into the glass and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now, this is Teeling Irish whiskey. Now, you'll probably be familiar with them. They are kind of one of the oldest of the new kind of families of Irish whiskey. They've been around for over 10 years now, just over 10 years. They started off in 2015 and now it's 2025. So this here is their 10-year-old birthday batch. Now, it is a blend, but it's a blend of all their own stuff. So you might be familiar with, for example, like the standard kind of Teeling flagship blend, which is a blend of 75% grain whiskey and 25% malt whiskey. They make the malt, but they source the grain because they don't make grain whiskey at Teeling. This, however, is a blend of all their own stuff. It is a blend 50-50 of single malt and single pot still Irish whiskey. Now, this here is to mark the 10-year kind of anniversary, but it doesn't have a 10-year-old age statement on it. So it might not be a full 10 years old because I'm not sure when exactly they started, because I knew they made single malt for a while. I'm not sure when they made single pot still or when that pot still went into cask. So it might not be the full 10-year-old. It might be like 10-year-old single malt and like 9 3/4 single pot still. But so it's all gonna be around about 10 years old. They did release one for the Irish whiskey kind of collection at the duty-free airport here in Dublin, and that has a 10-year-old age statement because I think that's a 10-year-old blend or 10-year-old single malt. This here doesn't have an age statement. Now it might be 10 years old, but it doesn't say this 10-year-old, so I can't tell you that it is, of course, 10 years old. What I can tell you though, it is fully matured in ex-bourbon casks, and it is coming in at 51.1% alcohol by volume. Why the 0.1? Well, when you write it out, you write it as 51.10, i.e. 10, 10, so it's a 10-year-old anniversary. There are only 500 bottles of it. Yeah, there's 500 bottles. My bottle is bottle 237, and yeah, it is non-chill filters, natural color, even though it is in their kind of dark, kind of bottle green bottle. If I hold up to the light, I can see that it's green, but on camera it might just come across as looking like it's pure black. But yeah, it is single malt, it's single grain. Teeling single grain is a blend of 50% single malt and 50% malted barley and 50% unmalted barley. So that means, what, 75% of this is malted barley and 25% is unmalted barley. So obviously when you mix those together, you get a different chemical reaction. But look, it is mostly gonna be single malt with that bit of single pot still, with that unmalted barley, giving you that kind of like oiliness, the kind of almost spicy herbal notes, to contrast against the kind of more biscuity sweet notes you get from malted barley. But I think that's enough talking. Let's get into tasting it. Let's go in for the nose on the Teeling 10-year-old birthday batch, mix of single malt and single pot still. Cheers. It's very, like, again, it was all bourbon casks, but it's surprisingly fruity for all bourbon casks. There's like a little bit of apple, maybe like a touch of like tropical fruits. Like, I wouldn't go as far as to say like a sharp pineapple or mango, but like a little bit heading in that direction. Like there's a good little bit of fruit, but then obviously you get all that bourbon cask. You get butterscotch, toffee, caramel, like caramelized apples. Like, you know, the apples are dipped in caramel. You get that kind of flavor. Yeah, really coming through. There wouldn't be, I'd say, a huge amount of spice, but the more I'm sitting with, I'm getting like a touch of like white pepper, a touch of like herbal notes, like those kind of notes. Yeah, definitely like a little bit of like white pepper, like a little tingle, like a little bit of tingle of, yeah, white pepper, of those kind of notes. Yeah, definitely like a little bit of peppery spice, not a huge amount. Like it's 51.1% alcohol, so it's not a huge amount. It's just what, 102 proof, thereabouts. But yeah, nice. Just to give you a bit of contrast, like you got a bit of fruit, you got a bit of sweetness, and you got that bit of like the peppery herbal spice coming through as well. So I'm gonna go in for the palate. See if it stays that way. Cheers and cilantro. It's got a nice mouthfeel. It's almost got this like subtle approach where it's like kind of soft, kind of sweet, kind of balanced, and then you start getting other flavors. Like you get a bit of oak spice, you get the peppery spice, you get the fruity notes, maybe again not as mango-y, not as tropical, but definitely apple, Definitely like a touch of, as I'm talking now, like almost like grapefruit citrusy, like that again. Almost sharp, but not really sharp. But then going back to the palate, definitely got like that caramel, butterscotch, sweetness, biscuity notes. Yeah, like a digestive biscuit, like that kind of really like cooked, toasted, roasted grains coming through. So gonna go again for another sip. Cheers. It's definitely creamy. It's definitely that sweet, rounded out, creamy caramel, vanilla, butterscotch note. On the second sip, the ABV, the alcohol, actually built a little bit. I didn't like it, well, I did adjust to it, but it did kind of add a little bit. I'll get a little bit more oak spice, a little bit more pepper spice. That apple, that red apple note is definitely there. Yeah, it just kind of adds a little bit more. It doesn't take away from like the core character, which is like on the sweeter, don't want to say softer, but creamier side. But definitely like second sip around just adds to it and pushes everything a little bit further. So I'm gonna go in again, focus on the finish, see what lasts the longest. Cheers. Okay, so on the finish, after a breath, it's still creamy. Like I think the core of this one here is it's creamy, it's soft, it's rich. There is a bit of oak taking it this direction, there's a bit of fruit taking it this direction. After a breath, I'm getting that kind of like that almost sharper citrus, not lemon, not grapefruit, but like that maybe blood orange, that kind of like pushing it a little bit, but it's all like coming back to that core sweet, vanilla, caramel, butterscotch, touch of pepper, touch of biscuity, roasted grain notes. Yeah, nice actually long finish, like surprise, like 51.1, it's not tiny, it's quite nice, it's quite long, it's got a bit of length on it. And as I'm talking, I'm still tasting it, it's still lingering. I've taken, what, 4 or 5 breaths now, it's still going, it's still a nice kind of sipper of a whiskey. It's something that you could be like, okay, I'll sit down, I'll enjoy this, I'll take my time with it. I wouldn't just like pound it back. I don't think I'd be using this in a cocktail, but just something that you can just enjoy for a good length of time. Before I give my final thoughts on this whiskey, if you're new here, scroll down, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like this every Wednesday. I put out cocktail recipes featuring whiskey every Friday, and every now and then on Monday I put out videos where I talk about whiskey, I compare whiskeys, I give advice for whiskeys to buy as a present or whatever you want. I put out those videos on Mondays, I put out whiskey reviews on Wednesdays, and cocktail recipes on Fridays. So if you want to see more like that, make sure to hit subscribe and leave me a note in the comments to say what kind of whiskey you think I should review in future. But now, let's focus on this one for the final thoughts. I think it's nice. It is some of Teeling's oldest cask. It is nice to see that, like, I know their early releases, like when they swapped from sourced to their own stuff, there was a bit of a, I think people said there was a drop in quality. It maybe wasn't like a, well, yeah, it was probably a drop in quality because they might have been sourcing stuff that was like 7 or 8 or 9 years old, and then they went to their own stock, which is like 5 or 6 years old. But as Teeling stock has matured, as it has moved on in age, I think it's definitely gotten a lot better. I think whiskey in casks, the longer you can leave it in a cask, generally speaking, the better it'll get. Like, there comes a point where it does drop off, but here I think Teeling are starting to hit that sweet spot where their whiskey is just like Dingle, just like some of the other brands, where they're getting up enough in age that they've gotten a lot of like cask influence while still retaining their core flavor. And I think Teeling are at that spot now. So if you maybe tried some of their early releases and you aren't wowed by it, or you thought, oh, you know, that's just what it is, I think maybe go back, give them a go again, because they've been around for 10 years time. They are doing something right. A lot of people came in at Teeling when they were like 8 or 9 years old and said, wow, this stuff's great. I don't know why people are talking about it, because some people tried it when it was a much younger kind of whiskey. So I think it's a good sign where things are going. This is some of their oldest stock, and it's a very good stock. So I think it's a good one to enjoy. You probably can't get this anymore because this one came out at their the 10th birthday party, but it is good to see that some of their stuff is very good. If you just buy their single malt that's released kind of in batches, chances are it's going to have whiskey that's about this age, so it'll be about as good, maybe a little bit better. So I think I'm going to keep on enjoying it, and I'll see you next time. Sláinte.